So, welcome back. We're back with another episode of the Fantasy Kickabout podcast. I'm David O'Hara, your host again. I passed the audition, so Gaz has let me take over the reins again for this week. So, as you can see, we're joined here with Gaz. So, Gary Quinn, welcome back. And we also have Anton Donohoe. So, three of us are here, and we are going to preview Euro 2020, which is starting this week on Friday, the 11th of June. So, I'm sure everyone has seen and heard about it in the news. So for a full month, Euro 2020 starting in June 2021. So we're here to just preview kind of the whole tournament as a whole. So we'll go through all the groups, who we think has a chance of winning, any sneaky dark bets to come in, who people wouldn't have a few bob on, and maybe a few top scorers and people who maybe we think won't do so well. So we'll get cracking into the groups first anyway. So obviously Group A starts off with Italy, and we have Wales, Switzerland and Turkey in it as well. And so Gaz, we'll kick off with you. Do you think there's going to be any upsets in this group, or how do you feel it's going?
Just before I get on to the group, I was just thinking, just based on the Premier League season and how kind of unpredictable it was, I kind of have a sneaky feeling this Euros could throw up a few surprises. It might be a very strange tournament, kind of one that we wouldn't have anticipated before. But also I was wondering, do we call it Euro 2020 or Euro 2021? I'm presuming with the branding and all that, FIFA, I was going to say UEFA didn't want to change anything, so we'll probably stick with Euro 2020. But I have to say, like, I am quite excited by the tournament. Bit of football over the summer, rather than sitting around waiting to see who Man United are gonna sign. It's nice to kind of take a break from all that Man United gossip. I suppose Group A, straight away you look at Italy, you look at Turkey. I believe the two of them had the best defenses in the qualifying stages. So it kind of shows maybe that there may not be a lot of goals scored in this group. Obviously you got Wales as well. Switzerland are one of those teams, those countries that I think they're ranked like 13th or something, 12th, 13th in the world. But you always go, like, why, how? Like they struggle to get out of the group stages in any major tournament. So I can't really see them getting out of the group, if I'm being honest. And then it's a toss-up between Italy and Turkey and Wales. And unfortunately, I can't really see Wales going too far. They very much depend on Gareth Bale. As we've seen the season, he was kind of hit and miss, but he does tend to show up for Wales, as he indicated on his flag that it was Wales, Golf and Madrid in that order. So maybe he could show up, maybe he could put in a good performance. But Wales are always that sort of team that if they're going to win games, they're going to win 1-0 or win by the odd goal. Looking at Turkey, I have them down as my dark horse for the Euros. I've done one of those predictor tournament things on the website, and I think I sent you one the other day, O'Hara, but I actually did another one because I was thinking things have changed slightly. So I think I have Turkey to reach the semi-finals. Like I said, best defense in the qualifiers, which is always a good thing going in to have the likes of Sayuncu, a guy you're familiar with, Kabak as well, Demiral from Juventus. I'm going to apologize to any listeners if I make a balls of any of the pronunciations of some of these players as well.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
Yeah. But I suppose Turkey have been very up and down since their third place finish at the World Cup in 2002. But I can kind of see them pulling off something quite similar, kind of upsetting, we're going to say, like the host nation, where it's a case of a team playing at home potentially. And And their guy up front, is it Yilmaz? I think he played with Lille, and obviously he's on the back of a really, really good campaign, obviously winning the league in France. So yeah, and they managed to pull off a couple of draws in the qualifying group stage with France as well. So that kind of gives you an indication of how they're doing, or what they could potentially do in at the Euros. For Italy, I think I'll leave most of this to Anto, but I really see them pulling off something. Not even pulling off something, because you expect Italy to be thereabouts, but a lot of people are writing them off. Again, I think they're unbeaten since 2018, and possibly, Anto, you might be able to correct me on this, but they're unbeaten under Mancini, maybe.
I think so, yeah. Right in that one.
Yeah, so I actually think Turkey are going to top the group. Joint points with Italy. I think the first game is going to call it a boring 0-0 draw. Not what we want, but just going to base it on the two teams' defenses.
Interesting. Okay, so we're calling Turkey as joint leaders in that group. Anto, anything to add there on the likes of Italy?
I just think, like Gary was saying about how defensive the two teams are, I think possibly that group's going to be the group where there's not going to be a whole lot of goals. It's probably going to be the least scoring group in the whole thing. But I think there's probably, like, the Turkey-Italy game probably show a lot of how ambitious they are. Like, I think both teams will be happy enough to sit in and say, yeah, look, we'll have enough to beat Wales and enough to beat Switzerland, and just wait. But I think Switzerland might surprise one of them. I just think they're that type of team where, like that Gary was saying, there's nobody really that stands out for Switzerland. Like, even to think of who plays for Switzerland, really, like, there's no one really amazing that you can think of, apart from Shaqiri, obviously. But I just think they might surprise one of them. But then, like, I think the fact Italy are playing all their games in Rome with a bit of a attendance there from Italians, I think that'll pull them through. And I think, like, Italy, a lot of people seem to think they won't do anything in the competition, but I think they'll be thereabouts come the end, because they always are. But I just think the problem for all these teams in this group is going to be to score goals. Even for Italy, I don't really see who's going to score a lot of goals. I don't see Turkey scoring a lot of goals. So I think it really is going to be, I think all the games in that group are just going to be settled by the odd goal, really. There's not going to be a whole lot in it. I think Wales will struggle the most out of them all in that group, really. I don't think Wales really have anybody. Depending on Gareth Bale and what humour he's in, maybe he might do something in some of the games, but other than that, I can't see them doing a whole lot. Yeah, so I think it's definitely a shootout between the two of them to see where it goes from there. And even as far as the third place goes, I don't think either of them two teams will be good enough to advance as one of the best third place teams in the competition. That's be my views on it anyway.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting thing about the tournament as well.
Mm.
Obviously you're so used to just looking at the top two of every group, but there's only 6 groups, and 4 of the best third place are going to qualify. So
yeah,
there's only going to be 2 third place teams that don't qualify. So really, kind of when you look across the board in the different groups, if any team, kind of once a team gets a win on the board, you'd nearly expect that to be enough to qualify them as at least a third place team. Just on Italy as well, it's an interesting one, because like you were saying, I'm fairly sure they are unbeaten under Mancini, but in terms of the goals, I think they won all 10 of their qualifiers or something like that, but it wasn't with, like, the likes of a Harry Kane banging in 80% of the goals or anything like that. They seem to kind of share the goals around quite a lot. So like that, it'll be interesting to kind of see, do they have kind of one focal attacker, or is it just generally more based on a solid defense? But anyway, so moving on from Group A, we have Group B, which has Belgium, Russia, Denmark, and Finland. Looking at that, kind of, in my opinion, it's quite an open group in terms of off the players that Belgium have had over the last few years, you'd expect Belgium to comfortably qualify out of it. After that, I think it's kind of up in the air as to how the rest of the group is going to go. Anto, do you have any thoughts on is it going to be a shootout for second or a straightforward top two?
Yeah, I think Belgium will obviously run away with it handy enough. Especially with Lukaku, the form he's in, I can't see there being much of an issue there. And obviously they'll have De Bruyne back, I think, with the mask or whatever he's going to wear to get him through. But no, I think they'll be comfortable. But I think after that it's a little bit open. Finland, I don't think will do a whole lot. I don't think they have any players really that will cause too many issues and all that. But I was talking to a fella today about it, and he kind of turned me and convinced me a little bit. From a team that I think that might surprise a few teams along the way is Denmark. In the long run, I think like they probably have one of the best keepers in the competition. So that's one. Plus, then they've a fella plays for Hoffenheim, Scoff. He's a winger. He kind of plays, and like his set piece is probably one of the best in Europe. Really, like I'm surprised he hasn't been picked up by somebody else at this stage. But I think Denmark will probably surprise a few teams, and they might even give Belgium a scare. Now I think Belgium will still have enough. Russia, then you just don't really know what sort of form they'll be in and how they'll turn up and all that. And I know they play Belgium first, so if they were to get a bit of a slap in there, maybe they might struggle. But then they're kind of in that same position again, where all their games are being played in Russia, so they might have a little bit of more to pull them through, you know. But I can only see two teams really battling out, and that's Belgium and Denmark. I don't think the other two will really do enough to worry the other two now.
This is it, and it's an interesting factor, guys, isn't it? That Anto was saying there of the few countries who will have most of their games at home. Surely that's going to be a factor in having your own crowd behind you. And Denmark is definitely a good shout. I had heard that. Someone was chatting them up there.
And even Denmark play all their games in Copenhagen as well.
Yeah, see, this
but that
could
group
be a
has
massive
two of them, so because even the Russia games in Copenhagen as well. So
this is it, and sure, Russia, like that, you often don't know many of the players at all, and sure, Russia invariably turn up and end up getting to the last 16 or the quarterfinal. Guys, what do you think about Group B? Any upsets?
Kind of 100% with Anto on this one, and I think the fact that Denmark have all their games in Copenhagen is a huge kind of benefit. Also, I think like Christian Eriksen could be. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Luka Modric of the tournament, but he has that potential. And when you consider where he was kind of before Christmas, January, considering a move, and all of a sudden he actually became an important player for Inter Milan in their run-in. So he's going into a tournament as the main man, as someone who has a good bit of confidence going into the tournament. I think he was Denmark's top scorer as well in the qualifying campaign. To be honest, Belgium, I can see them winning all three games quite comfortably. Well, maybe not the Denmark game. Maybe there might be a goal in it. But again, like you look, Belgium are again one of those teams over the years that they win all their 10 games in the qualifying campaign, and then they don't really perform, or they not scrape out of a group, but don't really perform and get out of a group, and then they get knocked out. Wasn't it Wales at the last Euros, I think, that beat them. So I don't know, is it coming towards an end for that generation of the Belgian player, where you have obviously Hazard, like will he ever rediscover his form from his time at Chelsea? Obviously Kevin De Bruyne is going in with the mask, but I'm sure he'll still perform. But you just look at that team and the bags and bags of potential. And even Benteke, you look at Christian Benteke, and he was firing in goals towards the end of a Premier League campaign. So he's not a bad player to have as an alternative to Lukaku to bring on, or play in a dead rubber third game in the group stage when you're already qualified. Potentially their defense, you might look at Alderweireld and Vertonghen as Asian defenders, maybe. Obviously Alderweireld was in and out of the Spurs side under Mourinho. So it's kind of hard to know with their defense. If anything, that will potentially let them down. But Lukaku's just banging in goals left, right, and center. Probably, even if Belgium don't get to a final, you could potentially see him being top scorer based on how many goals he'll get in this group stage. As for Finland, obviously their first ever Euros. But I believe Pookie is a doubt with an injury. So no Pookie, no party. So I reckon they'll probably be the whipping boys of the group. When it comes to Russia, again, wasn't it something to do with the Olympics? Where obviously any one representing Russia would have been banned from a major event, but apparently UEFA aren't classed as a major event based on the anti-doping procedures and stuff like that. So, because I remember reading a couple of weeks ago, people were questioning why are Russia still in the tournament, and I was thinking, Jesus, could something happen here where Russia are kicked out similar to Denmark in '92? And obviously Denmark ended up coming in place of Yugoslavia, I think it was, and we might have a complete upset of a team that hadn't even qualified winning the Euros, but that's obviously not going to happen. Russia, I don't know, just I can't even pronounce half the players' names. Never mind tell you anything about them. So I can't see Russia. Probably can see Russia beating Finland, but it wouldn't be enough for a third place finish to qualify for the last 16.
Happy days. Moving on to Group C, so this is the one that has Ukraine, Austria, North Macedonia, and the Netherlands. Do we see it similar enough to Group B, kind of Netherlands to run away with it and a couple of far lesser teams to battle it out, or what do you think? That's Gaz. What do you think on this group?
I think on paper you look at the group and say Holland hands down, but I was looking through their squad the last day or two, and they really depend on Depay and Wijnaldum. And apart from that, you're looking at lads. I think we were saying in our own group, was it Van Arnold at Palace? Like, he's released. They have a lot of players that are not playing at big clubs or top clubs around Europe. So they very much depend on those two players. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk, that would depend on him as well. So I just think it's a really weird one with Holland. I can see them qualifying out of the group, but I can't see them being too convincing. I actually predicted Ukraine to top that group. Might be a surprise to some people, but they topped their group in qualifying in a group with obviously we know a bit about Serbia, but also they beat Portugal to top spot, and I think they beat them in a game as well. I think they might have went unbeaten in the group. Ukraine, I might be wrong on that, but you're looking at it as with Shevchenko as their manager, a bit of a legend there, all-time leading goal scorer. He's obviously done something right with the team, with the country. So I can see Ukraine potentially topping that group with Holland. Again, it might be a draw between them, but they might do it on goal difference. Interesting, actually, I was just looking through. The only man, Yarmolenko, that plays for West Ham, he's only 10 goals off Shevchenko's record.
Is he really?
Which is quite incredible when you can consider how many goals he has scored for.
Start dropping him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He won't play him in the Euros. But there's another guy I was reading up on. Mind you, I'm going to make a balls of this, but Malin Novkovic or something like that. I think he's a centre midfielder, but by all accounts, the Ukrainian kind of media are kind of hyping him up to perform big things at the Euros. Then we're obviously between Austria and North Macedonia. can't really see North Macedonia, even though obviously they upset Germany with beating them a couple of months ago. But can't really see any upsets from North Macedonia. Can't really see any upsets from Austria either. Austria never really get out of group stages at Euros or World Cups, so again, I can't see them doing anything. They actually, I think themselves and North Macedonia featured against each other in the qualifying round, and Austria came away with 2 victories. So I can see another victory for Austria in that game, which possibly will give them an opportunity to qualify as one of the best placed third position teams. But another, I suppose, another guy to keep an eye on for Austria, Arnautovic, I think he's been over in China the last while, so might be interesting to see how he's getting on, and whether he's able to perform for Austria.
Class. Anto, anything else there? You gonna predict Ukraine top in the group like Gaz, or?
Yeah, this is the group where I had the biggest shake-up. I have Holland to finish third in this group.
Oh wow, okay.
I think Austria will finish second.
Wow.
Just to shake it up. That's like Gaz is saying, I think Holland, like their squad on paper, is pretty shocking, really, considering Holland are one of the European powerhouses and all that kind of stuff. Like apart from Depay and Wijnaldum, there's not really a whole lot that I'd overly be worried about too much. Like, and then I think Ukraine will be good, and then I think the Shevchenko or whatever it's called from City. I don't know if any of you watched him play for Ukraine. He plays in centre mid for Ukraine. He doesn't play left back. He plays completely different, and they play a 3 in there, and he almost plays like an attacking midfielder for the Ukraine, and also that'll be an interesting one for people to watch and maybe haven't watched a whole lot of Ukraine, and all of a sudden see him playing centre mid, and I was like, what's he doing when he's not left back? Like,
yeah, that'll be interesting.
He's good. Like, I've watched him play there a few times, and then I think Austria, like, I think they just might surprise them. They've a couple of good players like Alfish, they've fella there from Eintracht Frankfurt at the back, Hinterberg, then like the Marshall Savitzer, David Alaba in midfield. So I think they have probably a better team on paper than Holland, really. Like, if you think of their starting 11, I think they have a decent, like with them 4, they have a good like spine through that middle of the team. I don't know too much about the rest of their squad, but I think like they could surprise Holland, and that may just put them into second. But I think Ukraine will win the group handy enough. And I think, like you're talking about Shevchenko, like he seems to be the type of manager that he very much changes his team to who they're playing. They don't play a set like 4-3-3 or anything like that. If they're playing against a team that plays a 1 striker, he'll play 3 at the back. So that'll be interesting to watch what he does in the 3 games anyways, to see, because he very much sets his team up to counteract what the other team do. He's very much not set into this is the way we play and that's it. He very much studies what the other teams are doing. And then I suppose when you think about his own playing career, the managers he would have worked with has obviously rubbed off on him a bit, where he's able to pull on them experiences. But now I think Ukraine, Austria, Holland and North Macedonia, then they're just there for the crack.
Well, very good. So across the board, Ukraine to top Group C. There's one I didn't see coming.
Just a question for you, O'Hara. Wijnaldum, do you reckon he's more important for Holland or Liverpool? Obviously, before you.
Yeah. I think equally so, but he plays entirely different roles. Like you've both said, like he's one of the Netherlands' most important players. He seems to turn into an absolute goal machine when he's playing for them. Where obviously he's only scored a handful for Liverpool, but he plays in a far different role for Liverpool. You know, he's more of a kind of deep lying midfielder who kind of does all the dirty work along with the likes of Fabinho and stuff like that, where he's kind of given the freedom to be let loose, kind of more as an attacking midfielder, kind of like I suppose he would have been in the season that he was with Newcastle before we signed him. He scored 11 goals that season, as far as I remember. You know, so obviously when we signed him, to be honest, when Liverpool signed him, it was kind of a case of, do we even have space for him in the team? Because he was seen as this attacking midfielder who, like, you know, was going to be a 10 or like one of the front 3 type of a player. So, you know, obviously we didn't see it coming when Klopp then turned him into a more of a defensive minded midfielder. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because you don't see, I suppose, centre midfielders have such different roles. and do both so well between club and country. I think he'll definitely be missed, obviously, by Liverpool. It's gas. This is after turning into me talking about Liverpool again. But he is. I like that he has the more attacking role with the Netherlands, because he absolutely has that in his game. So it's good that he's still able to showcase it, and it's not a case of, oh, he moved to Liverpool and lost it. Do you know what I mean? It's just a case of he's playing a different role. The Netherlands are an interesting one, really, because I think really had COVID not happened and the Euros had happened in 2020, I would have thought they'd have a very good chance, because it wasn't long before that Koeman ended up going to Barca. So like the Netherlands were flying with Koeman as the manager, and obviously Van Dijk wasn't injured at the time. So I think in a different universe, we could nearly have been chatting about Netherlands as one of the contenders to win the tournament. So it's interesting how kind of one or two little cogs changing, and they may not even qualify out of the group.
Isn't it weird? Obviously, Frank de Boer as their manager, but then Jose Mourinho described him as the worst manager of all time in the Premier League because of his obviously record with
because of his record, yeah.
He also he did something similar with Holland. Doing a bit of research on them, I think he went the longest they hadn't won a game or winless run as a new Dutch manager. So I think that kind of sums them up at the moment.
I've seen some pundit now, I can't think of who it was off the top of my head. I was listening to it the other day. Said they couldn't get their head around how he goes to a place and does such a bad job, but then seems to get an even better job when he moves on.
Yeah, he does a terrible job and gets a better job. Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah, he'll end up managing Chelsea or City or something now in a year or two. Grant, so we'll move on to kind of one of the most talked about groups, really, because our dear friends across the pond, England, are obviously hoping to bring it home, as I'm sure they'll be singing for the whole month. So we have England in a group with their close neighbours, Scotland, and with finalists last time round, Croatia, and making up the group, then you have Czech Republic. So it's a strong enough group, really. Guys, do you think it's straightforward that England, obviously the fans think they have a good chance of winning the tournament? Obviously we hope there's a bit of an upset on the cards. I do anyway, not speaking for everyone else, but I'm obviously in the Andy Robertson camp. I have a Scotland jersey on the way, so but yeah, how do you see this group turning out, Gaz, or any of the teams kind of going forward in the tournament?
I think Anto described, was it the Belgian or Group B with Belgium, Denmark being quite close? Was that the one that you said there might be a goal here and there between the games? I actually see this group being quite close in terms of the games, where I actually sat down and actually wrote out a lot of the results that I thought would happen, and a lot of the games I end up going 2-1 to obviously certain teams, but I can see England getting out of the group. I can see them actually winning all their games, but not very convincingly. When I say not convincingly, they're not winning 3-4-0. They're kind of put under pressure, but they're getting the job done. And this might be a bit controversial, but I don't mind them doing well. And the reason, I know Harry's having a little giggle to himself here, but the reason is, like, I suppose I support the likes of Henderson, Maguire, Shaw, Rashford, potentially Sancho going from next season. So I cheer these lads on every week, and I know it's very much an English thing where it's overhype, obviously maybe overly enthusiastic. But they have a really, really good squad. Maybe their defense is questionable. But apart from that, and I know there's question marks around Gareth Southgate, whether you can pick the right team, the right formation. I actually think again, I don't live in England, so I don't really know what goes on behind the scenes with England, and how, it seems like they're not a big fan of Southgate over there, but I think he's done a good job. He's he's brought England like more together as a team. And again, you might look at their team and think there's a lot of individuals, whether they can perform as a team. And that's very much up for debate. But when you look at, you have Sancho, Rashford, Sterling, Grealish, Foden to choose from, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well as an alternative. That's a very, very good front line to choose from. It's just
And you left out a Champions League winner.
Oh yeah, no, exactly.
Mount, like.
Yeah, exactly. And you just look at that front line and obviously Kane thrown in there as well. But you look at that front line and think whether Southgate can get it right. And for me, obviously Kane's a starter. I just think Jack Grealish has to start. Like even in the couple of warm-up games, he's been probably England's best player in the bits of games that I've watched. So it will be really, really interesting. I can see England getting out of the group with 3 victories, which doesn't happen that often. Unfortunately, I can't really see Scotland doing too well. I can't. I don't even know if they'll pick up a point. Maybe they might get a draw in one of the games. But you look at how Scotland got to the Euros, and that could have easily been Ireland through the penalty shootouts and obviously the playoffs and stuff like that. But they do have very decent players, obviously, as O'Hara mentioned, Robertson, they got Tierney, Scott McTominay, I think, plays as one of the 3 centre backs. Che Adams obviously declared for Scotland, knowing that they were qualified as well, and I think he got a goal or 2 over the last couple of games for Scotland. So they have a decent team going into it, but I just think the likes of Croatia, obviously England, Croatia, Czech Republic will be too strong for them. Croatia, you look at, I think they as group winners of their qualifying group, I think they scored the fewest goals. So obviously the likes of Mandzukic, Rakitic have moved on since their World Cup final a couple of years ago. Obviously Modric is a year older from when the Euros was potentially going to take place. So I can see Croatia just having enough quality, but just scraping through that group ahead of obviously Scotland and Czech Republic. Obviously with Czech Republic, we're very familiar with Soufal and Souček at West Ham. So maybe they could potentially pull off something, maybe get through as one of the best third place teams to finish, but can see England and Croatia qualifying fairly comfortably from this group.
Very good. Anto, what do you think about that group? Like that, just before you go ahead with it, like that, I can agree. I agree with where you're coming with, Gary, like that, because Scotland kind of just got through. Like they obviously deserve to, but then obviously you have the likes of Croatia who have the experience of going to the World Cup final. Like that as well. Like I think when you're talking about the Czech Republic, I'd say it would be very tough to break down. They seem to have a lot of like that players of the ilk of Souček, kind of just strong, tough players. So yeah, like I'm obviously being romantic, hoping that they qualify out of it, but I would say they'll struggle. England, I just think it's the case of like absolutely Grealish should start. Like the problem is, why is it even a conversation? And that's the whole thing of, I just don't think Southgate really knows his best team, and so that's. I think they do have it. They've so many places we're familiar with, because most of them, if not all of them, bar the likes of Trippier, like they all play in the Premier League, so we see them all the time. So we know they're very good players. So it's just a case of actually fitting them into a system that works. I think that's the only thing that could be their downfall. So if something clicks and Southgate gets it right, I think they do have a chance of going relatively far in the tournament. And so, what do you think then on Group D?
Yeah, I think it's a fairly straightforward group. I can't see being too many surprises really. I just seen the way the fixtures play out. I know England played Czech Republic last, and I'd hate to be an England fan needing a result there. Like you were saying, I think Czech Republic would be tough to break down. Then I think like the Souček has a goal in them from a set piece. Like that's what they'd be looking to play on. Then there's another guy playing beside Souček. Can't think of his name, but I know he's linked to go to West Ham as well from Spartak Moscow. He's basically Suchek 2.0 really, and that's what, like, I think I'd hate to be in that position as an England fan needing a result to get through. I think the best thing that can happen for England maybe is to finish second in that group, just like as a bit of a wake up and a shake. If you go win your 3 games, all of a sudden people think, oh, it's coming home. We're just going to romp through here, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be like that easy for them. Like Gary was saying, like they're blessed going forward. They probably have, like, apart from maybe France, the best attackers as far as the squad goes in the Euros. But the big problem is defence. Like, even you take, like, you're looking at Stones and Maguire. Even if Maguire's fit, it's probably been 5 or 6 weeks since he's played his last game for United. So then you're hoping that he's okay, that he gets up to speed quick enough, doesn't have a reoccurrence injury. Like, I can see it, say if Maguire does play, gets injured in the first game, where do they go from there really? Like, I don't think the likes of a Mings or someone like that is good enough for a team to go on and win the Euros with him having to play 4 or 5 of the games for them to win it. So I think that's going to be between Maguire and Henderson probably. They're going to need the 2 of them to be fit to have any chance really, I think. Then, like Gary's saying, I think the team selection is going to have a big problem. And I think, if they play the first game Southgate picks whichever team, they don't win that game, straight away it's going to be, oh, well, Grealish should have started, or Sancho should have started, or Mount should have started, because he has so many in them kind of roles that he's on to nothing really unless they go and win it. It'll always be, oh, well, they lost in the semi-final, oh, well, he should have started this guy instead of that guy, because they have so many of that end. But I think they will. I think they'll win the group handy enough, playing in Wembley as well. I think it's going to be obviously a big advantage, because even the Scotland game they have is in Wembley. So I can't see too much happening. I can see Scotland struggling. Can't see a whole lot. Their best players are probably their 3 defenders really. Like, and after that they don't really have a whole lot else. So they'll be very much hoping to keep teams out as much as they can and maybe nick something. But I just can't see it. But I just wouldn't like to be in a position of needing a result against Czech Republic, just because they're that type of team where nothing's pretty, but you just know it's just like, I'd imagine as a player, if you wanted to play Czech Republic, they're just that type of team where like, oh no, we're going to play these guys, just because it's going to be a dogfight. You're going to have to work hard to get through them, and if you need that result, you're not going to want to be in that position. So I can see the group playing out handy enough for England really, but I just think if they finish second, it mightn't be a bad thing in the long run, just as a little kind of wake up to say, look, we're not just going to stroll through here the way some people seem to think they will. Like, but no, I can see them handy enough getting through that group.
Guys, you're going to say something there, right?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because obviously Ando's saying he wouldn't like to be in England's shoes going into a must-win game, last game of the group against Czech Republic. They played against each other, Czech Republic and England, in the qualifiers, and Czech Republic won one of them. No, I think England won the first one 5-0, and then Czech Republic won the other one 2-1.
Yeah.
So again, it kind of backs up Anto's point that you wouldn't particularly like to be in that situation. But then again, as we were talking about, with obviously Italy, Denmark, England obviously play all their games, or potentially, I think if they make it to the final, they play all games bar one at Wembley. Yeah. So like that's a huge, and that's pretty much having the Euros in you're hosting the Euros by yourself.
Yeah, it's as close to a home tournament as it could get, really.
I wonder, it'd be interesting to see when it comes to the third round of fixtures, if you're kind of based in a country, and if you're going to finish first or second, but it means you're going to have to move camp for the round of 16 game.
Yeah.
Will there be a little bit of, if we lose this game, it's not the worst thing in the world. We still stay in this base and move on, potentially play a better country, but at least we're still here, potentially still in your home country. Like, I wonder,
that's interesting, isn't it?
We see a bit of that, like.
Yeah, because in past tournaments, you're so used to, you fly over, the teams would fly over, and this is their camp for the tournament. So it'll be an interesting one to see, even just generally, once it goes on from the group stage to the knockout stages, will teams having to move camp have an impact, as opposed to all the, the handful of teams who are just set in their home country.
Harry, just on that, obviously, our countries moving, our international teams moving to different countries and all that. Are you a fan of this kind of structure of the Euros? Personally, I'm not. I think it should be just based in one country, or the joint host, like I think it was Belgium, Holland, Euro 2000. I'm just not a fan of this whole idea of moving from one country to another. I know some countries are in a position that they don't have to, but I just think a major tournament should be based in one, max two countries.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I was a fan of it. I'm a fan of it on the, kind of on paper, like it's the 60th anniversary and, they kind of want to spread it around. And I was a fan of it from the point of view, it made it far easier to have a better chance of getting tickets for it when that was the thing that we actually cared about. But no, I agree with you 100%. Like generally, if you're a player or even, if you're a fan trying to get to go to all the games and that you had to be going to different countries, I think it makes far more sense to be in either a host country or, like a pair of close countries that have put a joint bid in and stuff like that. Like say, I think the next Euros is Germany, and then the World Cup after that is a joint one with, I think it's the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So you can see where you're coming from there. It's all the one thing. Like I'm sure it won't happen, but like with the fact that there's so many different cities, there might be a country who, depending on the route they take, might have to play in 3 or 4 different countries, which would be bizarre. And like you said, which just is entirely against what we're all used to and what makes the most sense, really. Because like we were saying about the camps, with Anto was saying, like, imagine you had to move camps. Imagine you had 2 or 3 different camps throughout the course of the tournament. I was about to say it'd be far more like Champions League, which it would, but like at least if it's during the Champions League, you go home to your city for a while in between. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. So it'll be interesting to see whether moving locations has any sort of an impact on teams, as opposed to the ones who kind of get to just stay put and make themselves comfortable for a while.
But you even look at Baku as a destination or a location for games. Like we saw how pretty much impossible it was for, wasn't it, Chelsea Arsenal fans to get there a couple of seasons ago for the Europa League final. Like that's, I just think, I know like you described it as they wanted to spread it around 60th anniversary and all that, but just having countries like that, like just host it in the country. And obviously they probably wouldn't be able to, probably similar to ourselves, we wouldn't have enough stadiums to facilitate a major tournament. But just think like teams are at a disadvantage straight away if they're flying to Baku and then trying to fly back to Rome or wherever else in Europe. Like that's a huge trek.
This is the thing, yeah. Like I like that one I found strange when the host cities were announced, the likes of Baku and St. Petersburg and stuff. That was a bizarre one because it was like, oh, well, it's just it's spreading it out far too much. Where you would have thought if you were having one that was going to be in a few different countries, that you'd have a kind of generally mainland Europe. Have Wembley, maybe obviously Dublin was due to be one. Germany, Spain, France, Portugal, Italy. Straight away you have 7 or 8 there, and you only have to get 1 or 2 more.
Is it far from Rome to Baku? I don't even know.
I've no idea, to be honest.
We'll get Google Maps up and have a look at it.
I'm just looking here, like Switzerland played their first game in Baku, and then they played the second game in Rome, and then they're back to Baku.
Jesus.
For their third game. So it just looks to me from the outside, obviously. I was kind of very skeptical at the start when this all came out. Delighted that Dublin was involved at the beginning because it's like, yeah, we have a chance, maybe we're going to see something. Even if Ireland don't qualify, there's still a chance to go see something or not. But it just seems like to me in the long run, even though they're the bigger countries and it makes sense obviously from to be there, but it plays into the hands of the bigger countries. Because all what you would call the top nation in Europe are all based in their own country. Like Italy are playing all the games in Rome, England are playing all the games in London, Germany are playing all their games in Munich. So I think all the bigger countries have an extra little bit of advantage again. It's not like when you look at a World Cup or a European Championship and it's a host country that, might necessarily not get near winning this, but it almost gives them that extra 10, 15%. where all of a sudden they managed to get through their group that nobody thought they'd get through and stuff like that. So I think it just plays the setup that they did with this even played even more into the bigger team's hands rather than having like the likes of a Greece hosting and all of a sudden they get a run at it because they're getting all the support from the local people and such a buzz around. Not saying that's just what makes you push on, but I do think it gives you that bit extra from being the host and all that. So I think it just played into the so-called bigger countries' hands just a little bit more. Then obviously, like, there was probably the money side of it too, of what they were thinking, and sponsor more sponsors around the world and Europe and all that kind of stuff. So sure, look.
Well, I just looked it up as you're talking there, and it's an absolute trek from Rome to Baku. Like, if I had any inkling that Switzerland were going to do well, I do not think they're going to have a chance of doing well now. It's on the absolute most eastern point of Azerbaijan. So, because obviously it's all mainland Europe, if you were to drive it, it's 4,500 kilometers. It'd take you 2 days to drive it. But it's an 8-hour flight, apparently, according to Google Maps.
I'm just looking at Switzerland there as well. Their first game's the 12th in Baku. Then they're playing the 16th in Rome. And then on the 20th, they're back in Baku to play again.
That's a disaster. I don't know how that was allowed, to be honest.
I wonder if obviously it wasn't COVID times. No, the way you have fans traveling in the camper vans. Like, do you have any Swiss lads traveling from Rome to Baku and in a van? Like, no way.
Like, it literally, it would take you 2 days. It would take you.
You're only there in time for the
51 hours. Like, literally, yeah. You wouldn't be even there in time because that's 51 hours driving non-stop.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. Wow. Okay, so we're writing Switzerland out of having a chance to win in the tournament.
Anyone get Switzerland in the draws and work or anything? No,
thank God. Thank God. So we'll move on to Group E. So this is Spain's group, and they're joined by Poland, Sweden, and Slovakia. Like, say, even, we're so used to Spain being kind of one of the powerhouses in the Euros and the World Cup over the last kind of 10, 15 years. But really, when you look at their squad, as we've all seen, like, they don't have any Real Madrid players. Excuse me. There's kind of not many players that would jump out at you when you're looking at their squad. Anto, do you think they are in for an upset, or do you think they'll still kind of have enough about them to walk through the group handy enough?
I think they'll still have enough about them to get through the group. I don't think they'll be overly worried about that. Can't see them getting to the latter stage really unless things just kind of break their way. I think Poland be my show for that group. I just think if they can get the ball to Lewandowski, it's going to be the big difference. Like you can't deny his form going into it, like breaking Muller's record and all that kind of stuff. So if they can get the ball to him, I think they'll do it. And then I think Poland plays Slovakia first. So you'd imagine Poland will beat Slovakia, and then they play Spain next. So like if they were to beat Slovakia comfortably enough going into the Spain game, I'd look at Poland to beat them. Poland are just one of them other teams. Like they're just solid without necessarily, apart from Lewandowski having a star. Like they're just a solid group of players, and they're very passionate, obviously, about being Polish and all that kind of stuff. All the Polish people are that way, but I think they can definitely upset it. I think they're the two out of that group. I think Spain will have enough to get through the group, but I think if I was any one of the bigger countries, I wouldn't be necessarily afraid of Spain coming. A little bit like on our point what we were talking about Switzerland, I know Poland have a trek as well. They play St. Petersburg and Seville.
Do they? Oh, because I was going to say Poland were a good shout. Like I was agreeing with you. Poland definitely are a good shout. Like,
that's the only fear.
Oh well, okay, so we're writing off Poland as well.
Because they played the Spain game obviously in Seville, but their other two games are in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
That were meant to be the Dublin games.
Ah, okay, yes.
So it was obviously Dublin, Madrid at the time. And then that got changed to Seville as well. But now obviously they're going to go from St. Petersburg to Seville back to St. Petersburg. So even a longer trek than Switzerland.
God.
So that'll be my only fear with them. But I think they'll beat Slovakia, which is the first game, and then from there, because of the thing with the third place teams, it's only a matter of picking up another result along the way, kind of thing, or a draw along the way, and they'll be safe enough through. But I think they'll still have enough. I wouldn't. If I was Poland, I wouldn't fear Spain. That's for definite. If I was Spain, I'd fear Poland more, to be honest with you. So I can see Spain will have enough to get through, but I think Poland will be the ones. I think Sweden will struggle as well. I think they'll probably beat Slovakia, and that's about it. And then Slovakia, I hope they finish on 0 points and concede 50 goals for taking our spot. But other than that, I can see them being the whipping boys in the group.
Yeah, it's a pity, really, isn't it, that there's been these couple of countries who've been kind of screwed over with the locations. Because I would absolutely have said Poland have a good shout, and obviously, it had kind of gone above my head. I hadn't noticed that those few countries had kind of gotten screwed over. I'd kind of only noticed, the teams that seem to have most of them in their home country. But Poland must have been raging when they saw the change from having their games in Dublin and Madrid to then Sevilla and St. Petersburg. So that's
especially the Dublin thing, because I know from talking to Polish fellas that I work with and other Polish guys I know around through football and all that, loads of these Polish guys had tickets to games in Dublin. I know, so Poland would nearly have been playing at home to a degree by playing in Dublin. So now they're obviously missing out on that, and then they get screwed over kind of with the St. Petersburg thing and that trek. So I think that will probably be their only thing that might skew them a bit, of pushing on in that group.
Yeah, because exactly as you said as well, I'd agree. I would say, on paper, Spain should be more likely to fear Poland. Lewandowski's in absolutely the form of his life, and Spain on paper again. I haven't seen much of the kind of the new crop coming through, but there's no Sergio Ramos there. De Gea doesn't even look like he's going to be starting, as far as I can see. It's going to be your man Unai Simon.
Busquets be back, or
sorry?
Will Busquets be back now? He got the COVID thing, and
again, see, I'm not sure.
He's the captain, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how Spain figure in the tournament. Gary, do you have anything to add there on Group B?
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one. Just with Poland, I was trying to find Lewandowski's record at major tournaments, and he's 2 goals in 11 games at major tournaments. So it kind of just shows that obviously he doesn't have the same quality as the Bayern Munich players around him when he's with obviously the Polish team. So that could potentially play a huge part. You look at, but then on the other hand, as Anto said, on the back of scoring 41 goals in the Bundesliga, obviously breaking a record, a whole nation are resting everything on Lewandowski pretty much, with Poland. You obviously got your man Milik, isn't it? He's a decent player. They have what's your man's name from Southampton, centre half? He's been Bednarak, isn't it? He's been quite decent.
Your man Click as well, from Leeds.
Yeah. So they have good players. I don't know. I just can't see them clicking. Interesting fact or interesting piece of information. Do you know who their manager is?
Poland.
Yeah.
No, don't think so.
Anto? Paulo Sousa. Do you know him, man? They managed was it QPR, Swansea, and someone else in the league.
Oh well, okay, yeah.
That's nuts.
Wow.
Never. Literally, I was shocked reading that yesterday. I was like, how? Completely forgot about that chap. So like I said, probably disagree with you with Poland. I can see Spain and Sweden kind of battling it out for top spot. Kind of similar with Anto, a bit of bitterness towards Slovakia, so not giving them any hope. But they sacked their manager after, was it a week or two after they beat Ireland in and obviously qualified themselves, because they lost a couple of their Nations League games. So they sacked their manager who qualified them for the Euros, which is very bizarre as well. It just kind of sums up managerial appointments and sackings and all that, even at international level. Spain, Yeah, it'll be interesting as I think Anto touched on the COVID situation. Busquets and I think it's Llorente as well is tested positive. So I don't know, did you see last night or the night before they fielded their under 21s team
I was
against?
going to say that, yeah, I wasn't 100% sure whether that was the case. That's why I didn't mention it. But yeah, that happened, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So and apparently they was a 4 or 5-0. They annihilated whoever they were playing.
In
Um,
Lithuania, wasn't it?
yeah, so it just shows like they've a good young team in the making. But I'd be really interested. It'll be really interesting to see how Laporte gets on because pretty much it's his first couple of games for Spain.
Yeah.
He's probably going to partner a guy we'll have a keen eye on, Anto Pau
Yeah.
Torres. Potentially could be Manchester bound for next season. Another interesting one, and it could kind of play into people's fancy football teams, is your man Ferran Torres. He's a great record with Spain. I think it's a goal every other game. For Spain, I know he got the hat trick against Germany, but he could be potentially in with a shout if Spain managed to go far in the tournament as banging in a few goals. He could be their main man. Morata up top, can't really see him doing much. But your man Moreno for Villarreal, obviously we know a bit about him, Anto, as well from the recent weeks. But he could be a little dark horse for top scorer if they're able to bang in a few goals against Slovakia, Sweden, and Poland. But I don't know, just something about Sweden that maybe it's the fact that I really like their away jersey that I bought it. That I'm backing them to get out of the group. I want to see them wearing that jersey more so throughout the tournament. But they played against Spain in the qualifying, so obviously they played against each other, and they only had one defeat to Spain in the qualifying campaign. So it kind of might show you that they have an opportunity to pull off a draw, maybe potentially a win, but more so a draw against Spain that could kick them on to actually qualifying out of the group. But obviously Ibrahimovic is out injured. I think everyone kind of likes to see him at a tournament. I know he talks crap half the time, but it can be quite entertaining. But an interesting one to look out for will be Henrik Larsson's son, who more than likely will feature from the bench.
Very good. I didn't know that. What's his name?
It is Jordan Larsson.
Very good. That'll be two Larssons. Seb Larsson will be there as well, won't he?
Yeah, he's a golden oldie, isn't he?
Yeah. You can see that he's still around. So just before we finish up, obviously on the groups we have, I suppose, the eye-catching one of the whole tournament, the group of death. As you know, there always seems to be a group of death. So this year's one threw up most of the heavy hitters. So we have Portugal, France, Germany, and poor old Hungary then to try and feed off the scraps in that group. Anto, how do you see that one going?
I think Germany are going to do better than what people are thinking they're going to do. I think France will win the group, all right. Just with the squad they have and all. I think everyone seems to think it's France or nobody really at the minute to win it. But I think Germany might surprise a couple of people along the way. I see a lot of people talking maybe Germany finishing third and all this kind of stuff. And maybe even I listened to one podcast the other day and it had Germany finishing fourth in the group. That Hungary would somehow get a result and that'd be that. I just think Germany's kind of flair players are just kind of coming into a bit of form at the right time. And like Havertz and all, is probably the best form he's ever been since he moved to Chelsea anyway. So I think they will surprise a few, the Germans, but I just think France will have enough over the games. Portugal, I'm not really too sure about Portugal really. I think they're another one of them teams, take out a couple of players and I just don't really see them being as good as people kind of make them out to be. I think they'll still go deep enough into the tournament and all that kind of stuff, but I just don't think they're going to be this big surprise thing that people think of because they won like that UEFA Nations thing and all. People think they're going to be this big powerhouse. Like, Fernandes is definitely off the boil going into the competition. There's no doubt in that, even from a United point of view. Definitely off the boil. Ronaldo, he's going to score if he gets a chance and all that. But I just don't know where it's going to come. I think, like, even though people kind of wrote him off a couple of years ago, Portugal's best player going into the tournament, I think, is Renato Sanchez. And he's playing kind of a different role than people have ever seen him play. He's kind of playing out wide more so now. And anything Portugal do good from a couple of friendlies I've watched him play kind of came through him. And I think if Ronaldo's going to score so that it's going to come, Sanchez is going to be part of that to get there. But I think I'd go France, Germany, Portugal as the three in that group. And I think it could be a group that might surprise people in. This might actually be the group where we lose one of the bigger teams in the third place, just because the other teams in the group are so strong. Like, you might get a situation where the third team and the fourth team don't win any game. And then that leaves them very tough for them to get into one of those 4 third place teams. Then for as far as Hungary goes, I suppose just going to have to go enjoy themselves and hope Peter Galassi has like 3 games of his life and keeps the score down. That'd be my thinking around that. Because even the bits that we've seen of him last night now, playing against Ireland, I didn't see a whole lot that would really put a lot of fear into the other 3 in that group. I think it'll very much be, for first and second in that group, I can see it very much being who beats Hungary the most.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And the rest falls into place from there. But I think that might be the group that surprises people with the third place thing. Like, there's a good shout that I think, like, I think France will be all right, but I think maybe Germany and Portugal, you could see them coming away from the group maybe with 0 points if things don't fall into place right for them and all. And I'm not too sure. Like, I think Germany play Hungary last, so they might be in a position where they've lost their first 2 games and are really very much chasing then the other 2 at that stage, and will have to obviously win to get one of the third place, which I think they would if it came to that. But I just think that might be the group that surprises. I think Germany's biggest problem is going to be the defence. Like Rudiger, fair enough, he looks like a new guy under Tuchel and all that. But like, they brought Matt Hummels out of retirement because they don't have anybody else. And like, Joachim Löw was left egg on his face, really. He kind of forced all these guys into retirement, and now all of a sudden the Euros comes around, we don't have anybody else. You guys may come back because I don't have anybody else. So I think that might really be like a downfall of his in the long run, really. But no, I think that's the way it'll play out. But I think Germany might surprise a couple of people from what I'm hearing and what people are saying about them. I think they might surprise 1 or 2.
Very good. Guys, what do you think? Do you think Germany to win it?
I don't know. I'm just having a look here, and I kind of wrote down France to beat Germany in the first round games, and Portugal, Germany to draw with each other, and then Portugal and France to draw with each other. So all the teams obviously then to beat poor out Hungary, but that would leave it at France 7 points, Portugal 5. I sound like the Eurovision here. Germany 4. So I can see it being a tight group. It's great, actually, isn't it, that we have big nations against each other early on, that we're not waiting for last 16 or a quarterfinal for the big games. But you guys might be able to tell me when this happened, but wasn't it Germany against Portugal, either Euros or World Cup, whenever, and Germany went out and absolutely annihilated them in the Portugal in the first half. So again, you could see something like that happening in the group, where one team is absolutely annihilated by another. And like Anto said, then their confidence is gone, and they're dependent on a result against Hungary to try potentially get a best place, third place finish. So I think it'll be a really, really interesting group. I think a lot of people are convinced there'll be a winner from that group, whether it's France, Portugal. But again, I'm not 100% convinced by Portugal, even though I think I've predicted them to get to the final, but not with ease, kind of potentially winning on penalties along the way, or just relying on Cristiano Ronaldo to pull something out of the bag for them. So it will be interesting. I think, again, Germany at the moment are quite similar to Italy, where a lot of people were writing them off, but a lot of their players, as Anto said as well, are kind of hitting a bit of form. They've called back, obviously, the lads out of retirement. So it'll be a really, really interesting group. It'll be interesting to see as well who Portugal go with at the back, because obviously Ruben Diaz will be one of them. But I was looking through, and they've rotated between, remember your man Fonte at Southampton,
Yeah.
And Pepe, and I think your man Semedo as well. So during the qualifying campaign and the Nations League, one of those three lads have partnered Ruben Diaz. So it doesn't seem like they have a solid set back four. They're constantly rotating. So again, we've seen what Ruben Diaz has done for Man City. He pretty much helped John Stones in the early phase, and obviously brought out the best out of John Stones. So maybe that's what he's going to potentially do with those guys beside him, even though obviously the other players are, well, Fonte and Pepe are much older than him. So yeah, no, it'll be a really, really interesting group. France, I think Griezmann, he's a tournament player, isn't he? There's no two ways about it. He's a lad that just loves tournaments. Like, regardless of his form at Barcelona, he just loves scoring goals at tournaments, loves coming up with a new celebration. And I think I'd nearly tip him to be top scorer. I know Mbappe is probably potentially the favourite, but I think Griezmann could be right up there. Got another goal last night. So yeah, again, France to top the group, Portugal, and then Germany to be one of the best third place teams.
Very good. So there'll be a few upsets so along the way. Perfect. So that's a good roundup of all the groups. I might just quickly go through. We'll go through maybe just kind of a quick thing on who both of you think might win the tournament. And maybe, so give me a team you think will win, a team who'll kind of be a dark horse, like, say, for example, the way Anton mentioned Denmark maybe going far. So kind of a dark horse, not necessarily to win it, but they'll go maybe further than people would expect, and maybe then go top scorer. So we'll go all three maybe at the same time. So Anto, what do you think from those three categories?
The winner, I think, changes every half hour. I think I'll go different than what everyone else is going. I'll go Belgium. Kind of the last hurrah for that golden generation to have to actually go and win something. Because then I think if they win something, you'll see like all these retirements coming after where that'll say thank you very much. That'll do us. So I think I'll go Belgium to be different, even though I think they're still in with a great show. Dark horse, I'll still go with Denmark to go far. And then top scorer, Lukaku. Why not? Yeah, Belgium are going to win it.
Very good. Yeah, so we have like that, just because I was actually looking on Paddy Power earlier today. So Lukaku and Kane are both joint favourites to be top scorer at the moment. But it's interesting as well, I suppose, as we were chatting about the few different countries and players who we think could potentially do well, it's interesting to see the odds. The odds get quite long quite quickly as you start going down through the players. So, Gaz, you were saying Griezmann. Like, Griezmann is 22-1. Lewandowski is 25-1. Even the likes of, like, Giroud is now only 5 goals off Henry's France record. So obviously he's going to be motivated whenever he gets minutes. Whether he'll start or not is up for debate. But like that, he's 33-1. And even a couple of sleeky shouts, like you were saying as well, guys. I hope I'm not just robbing all the things you said earlier. But you were saying Ferran Torres as well. Like, he's 33-1 as well. And like, kind of my sneaky shout is Diogo Jota for Portugal. And again, he's 33-1 as well. So it's interesting, kind of, if it's not kind of one of the absolute main names that you think of within a second, they're all quite it seems quite open.
Yeah, definitely. And it's criminal that we haven't actually mentioned Karim Benzema going back and been back in the French squad. Like, what an option that is to be able to potentially bring him off the bench or start him.
Came off injured the other night, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he's only out for, Deschamps said he was only out for 2 or 3 days maybe, so he should be fine. But that's huge. Like, he's like, you're adding to, like, you do potentially feel sorry for a player who missed out, but the same could be said, I suppose, for Hummels and Muller being brought back in. But obviously we'd love to get your winners and stuff like that, O'Hara, as well. But for me, I can't see beyond France, because I almost think even if they played their next 11 in line, they'd still do really, really well. And I think we sent a couple of pictures into the WhatsApp group of the players that they didn't bring, and that's a decent team and a decent squad as well. So I just think they're going to have too much in the end for all teams. So I can only see France winning, really. I have down here for Portugal to make it to the final as well, but like I was saying earlier, I think there'll be a couple of penalty shootouts scraping through the group as well, and relying heavily on Ronaldo. But my dark horse is Turkey. I have them down here to make it to the semi-finals. I actually have them to beat Belgium on penalties potentially in the quarterfinals. I know it's all kind of madness trying to predict all this, because it could go out the window after game week 1. Sweden as well, I think, could make it to the quarterfinal just based on their draw.
And based on their jersey, of course.
100% O'Hara. 100%. I'm raging that I didn't get it in time, that I could have popped it up here behind us.
I know, yeah, we could have had a class background with all our new jerseys.
But maybe when we run another podcast throughout the Euros, we'll have the jerseys in the background. But like Anto said, I think if anyone else was to win it, bar France, I think I'd have put money on Italy, and I did get them actually in a draw with a group of friends from home as well. So gosh, Italy, and I actually got Immobile as top scorer. So what we do is, as a group, is like for the golf, for the Masters, or for the Euros World Cup, we do a little draw, and whatever, we get 2 or 3 teams or 2 or 3 top scorers, but we have to go in and put bets on with those teams. So it kind of forces it. Like, I think I can't even remember, it might have been Finland as well. So I'm going to go in and put like $5 on Finland or something like that. But you never know. They could do a Greece and pull off like an unbelievable kind of performance. You just never know with this Euro. Finally, top scorer, probably Lukaku, based on his group that he has, or that the group that Belgium have. I can see him banging in a good few goals, and it's kind of similar to Kane at the last World Cup. He got a lot of goals in the group stages, obviously penalty taker as well. And then Griezmann, I think, if obviously France go all the way, I can see him being top scorer. And again, it's madness, we haven't really touched on Mbappe, who's potentially the best player or one of the best players in the world.
This is it. Yeah, perfect. So as you said, guys, my predictions would be not dissimilar to yourselves. I can see France doing well. Obviously, I'm wearing a France jersey at the moment, so I wouldn't be impartial to them doing well. We'd often go to France on summer holidays, usually, obviously, before COVID. I've always had a soft spot for France over the years. So I can definitely see them doing well. My prediction was almost the same as yours, guys, because obviously you sent me kind of the prediction of the whole tournament, in that the final you predicted was France and Portugal, which is what I think will happen. But my pick for the tournament is, I think Portugal will win it. Obviously, as we were saying, as you both touched on earlier, you know, some of their players like Fernandes and stuff are in a bit of maybe poor form compared to the great form that they were in previously. I just think the players they have, especially attacking, they'll definitely be in with a shout. So if I was picking one, I'd go Portugal. They're my shout. Dark horses, again, I think it depends on where they're based around the globe. I think if Poland do well in the group stage, kind of you'll be able to tell after the first maybe game or two, and after they've travelled, from obviously their thousands and thousands of miles, as to whether they'll kind of be settled in the tournament or not. But I think if they are, they could go relatively far. I wouldn't say they'll win it now. So my one that I would say as a dark horse who could potentially win it is Italy. So the same as you guys. We did a sweep in work actually, and they were the team that I got. So I was pretty happy with that because, as I said, I think other than kind of the main few that people are talking about, which are France and Portugal, and obviously all the England fans are saying England. I think Italy are absolutely in with a shout, especially given their form in the qualifying rounds, and they've a relatively straightforward group from the looks of it. So I think they're definitely in with a shout.
I was just going to say, how far do you think England will go? Because obviously, if they finish first or second in the group, they play either first or second, isn't it, in the group of death? So they're up against it like straight away from getting out of the group. Whether they am I right in saying if they top it, they play second place. If they finish second, do they? Who else is in that group? Maybe not actually. Maybe if they finish second, they don't. I think that might work, is it? They don't.
Yeah, I think you might be right. But definitely, I don't see England particularly they kind of flattered to deceive at the World Cup, getting to the semi-final. They really couldn't have gotten a more straightforward route to the final. Had they gotten to the final, but to have gotten to the semi-final, they couldn't have handpicked a better opponent at each of the stages than they did get. I'd say I think they'll definitely qualify out of the group anyway. But I'd say they'll be hit by a couple of more difficult opponents along the way once they do qualify. So, I can see them, obviously being buoyed by getting out of the group and putting in a good performance in the last 16. I can't really see them getting further than the quarterfinals. So they wouldn't be in my shout for, potential winners really. I'd say they'll have a decent tournament, but again, by England standards, is quarterfinals in the Euros a decent tournament? Obviously a lot of people would say yes, but I'm sure the players and most of their fans won't be too happy without anything less than a final appearance, I'd say. Top scorer wise, I think it's hard to look past the likes of the lads who have quite a decent group stage. So like you were saying, Lukaku is definitely up there. Lewandowski, I think if Poland again, if they do well, I think he could bang in a fair few in the group stage. Obviously I was looking at Italy as well, but as I was saying, they don't really have just one talisman who's knocking them all in. Immobile seems like he'll play most of the games, but again, the goals are quite spread around. So kind of the more sure bets I'd go with are Lewandowski and Lukaku. But if I'd probably the Euros are always a good thing to kind of, pop into Paddy Power and put a couple of euro each way on people. So I'll be putting a couple of long shots. So as I said with Jota, I think he's 33-1, as I said earlier. So I'll be putting a couple on Jota. I think if Portugal are to do well, which I think they will, then I think Jota will be an important part of the team. So I think himself and Ronaldo will score a fair few. Obviously, Ronaldo has the added bonus of being their set piece taker, so he'll take any penalties and free kicks that they get. So that might go against Jota. I just think the type of player he is, he'll just be jinking around, and I think he has a very good chance. But yeah, to finish on, then I'm going to throw a couple on your man Moreno as well, with Spain, because he seems to have a very good record in the short time that he has been with the Spain team. And again, he seems to be in far better form than Morata. I think was the goal he scored against United, I think was his 30th of the season or something like that. So again, I hadn't heard of him before that match. So he seems to be someone who's in good form. So I think especially, so again, going off what we've said as our predictions and, briefly flicking through the odds, it seems to be anyone's game really in terms of top scorer and, for who's going to even make the final. So I think we'll wrap it up there, lads. That's a pretty good preview of this year's Euro 2020, which, as we said, is in 2021. So thanks a million, lads. Looking forward to the tournament now starting on Friday. Thanks a million, guys. Thanks a million, Anto. And next time we're here, if we're doing the Euros one, we'll be kitted out with all our new Euros jerseys. So thanks a million, guys, and chat to you again soon.
Cheers, O'Hara.
Thanks.